Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your English Literature live class. So we have been studying the poem If, okay, and let us continue from where we had left yesterday. So I'll give you a brief recap of this poem. So I told you that it is written by an English poet, Rudyard Kipling, and is an inspirational poem which gives us a lot of messages. Okay, and it gives us an idea how to deal with different situations in life. Fine, and this poem is basically a kind of advice given by a father to his son to how to walk through different roads of life. Okay, life is full of challenges. It throws challenge, keeps on throwing challenges at us, but we should develop an art, we should develop a skill to handle or to act, to behave in those situations. All right. So basically, this is the bottom line of this poem, and you will see that in every stanza, a lot of ifs are there. It is made up of if clauses, and towards the end, we will find the main clause. Okay, and the main clause will give us the consequence if one follows all these conditions. Okay, one fulfills all these conditions which have been enumerated in this poem by the poet. So in at the last line, which will give us the main clause, which will tell you, or which will tell us that what will happen if we fulfill all such conditions which have been enlisted over here by the poet. Okay, so we did the first stanza. I hope that was clear to everyone. Now we'll move on to the second stanza. Okay, who will read? Akshita, you can read.
Ma'am, may I start?
Yes.
If you can dream, make dreams your master. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim. If you can meet your triumphs and disasters, uh, and treat those two impostors just the same. If you can bear to hear the truth you have spoken.
Twisted.
Whisper by knives to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you give your right to broken, and stop and build him up with worn out tools.
All right, you can mute yourself. And here it is triumph. All right, Akshita, not triumph, it's triumph. So, as you see the first line, if you can dream and not make dreams your master. First of all, what kind of dream is the poet talking about? Okay, all of us have some dream. Okay, all of us want to become something in our life or want to achieve certain dream. Okay, we have set goals in our lives. Fine, but then it is good to have dreams, but we should not make dream our master. That means we should not be led all the time by our dreams. All right, we should not become over ambitious in pursuing our dream. Fine, we should not lose the touch of our rationality in pursuing our dream. Okay, so whatever you are dreaming, but you should have that thing, which you should have control over your thoughts, over your dreams, that you are not controlled by them. Okay, you should not try to fulfill your dream at any cost. Okay, you should not become over ambitious in the pursuit of of achieving your dreams. So here the poet is talking about the dreams which can dominate us and make us over ambitious. Okay, we should not give the harness of our life in the hands of the dreams. Okay, so that is why he is saying that if you can dream and not make dreams your master. So what happens is that sometimes, people in the run of in chasing their dream, what do? They ignore everything. They ignore all the people around them. They ignore every small little things. They ignore their family. So all these things which are important, they are being ignored by them because they are just chasing their dream blindly. So that should not happen. Okay, your dreams should not control you, though it can lead you. Okay, yeah, if you have dream in your life, if you want to be something in your life, but then you should work on it in a positive manner. Okay, you should really work over it, but you should not just blindly keep on following it, ignoring all other things in your life. All right, so that is what the poet has tried to say, that his son should not make dream his master. That means he should not be enslaved by his dream. Okay, so you should not be enslaved by your dreams because it is your dream, so you should have control over it rather than your dreams have control over you. Okay, so you should not become over ambitious. You should not become so influenced by your dreams that you lose touch with everyone else in your life, with everything else which is present there in your life. Fine, so that is the thing. Next, it is being said that if you can think and not make thoughts your aim. So now the poet is talking about thoughts. Okay, it is good to develop that speculating power. Okay, that you are thinking, you sit and you think, you give thoughts over something, but then your aim should not be limited only to thinking. Fine. If you have thoughts of something, if you have thought of a plan, then you should immediately start working on it. You should start turning your thoughts into action. That should be your approach towards your thoughts. Fine. Suppose I'll give you an example. If suppose you're hungry and if you start just thinking about food, so is it going to fill your stomach? Is it going to satisfy your hunger? I don't think so. It is not going to do that unless and until you go and you eat something. Fine. So that is what the poet is saying. Mere thoughts will not take you anywhere. Okay. So you should remain in your dreamy world all the time. Rather, if you have thought of something, if you have some aim in your life, if you have some goal in your life, then what is the most important thing? The most important thing is to work on it. Okay, you sit for some time, you make a plan, you think over it how you're going to execute it, but then the main part is the execution, that you have to work upon it, that you have to turn that aim, that thought into action. Fine, so that is what the has talked about over here. And then he says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster. So here personification has been used. Triumph and disaster have been personified, and treat those two imposters just the same. So this means that triumph means victory and disaster means defeat. So he is saying he has referred to both of these things, both triumph and disaster, as enemies. Imposters means enemies, foes. Why? Because success, sometimes it gets on the mind of people. They become arrogant, all right, and they become self-involved once they achieve success. They lose all kind of virtues which are there. They lose their humility. All right, they start thinking themselves to be superior. They become overexcited sometimes at a small success, that they fail to move ahead. They fail to plan for higher goals. Okay, so here also what is happening, you are losing your virtues, so you are losing something. That is why it is being referred to as an enemy by the poet. And why defeat has been failure has been also referred to as enemy, because sometimes it happens, if we fail in life, we become too disheartened. Okay, we overthink, we become dejected, hopeless, we develop a negative approach towards life. So there again you are losing something. So in both the cases, you are suffering some kind of loss, isn't it? So he is saying that yes, it is fine if you win, if you become successful in life, or if you fail in life. In both the situations, you have to act normal. Okay, don't become too excited on being successful, and don't become too disheartened on failing. Okay, so he is advising his son, and through that he is advising to the readers also, to us also, that we should remain neutral in both the cases. Okay, it is not bad to become happy when you succeed, but too much happiness at a small success and living in that success forever and not working to achieve higher goals, bigger goals, okay, will be disastrous, will be harmful for you. Fine, because and the other way of looking at it is that it makes you lose your virtue. If you do not take success in a balanced way, then it will get on your mind, it will get on your head, and you will start mistreating people around you. You'll think that you are too successful and the others are too start looking down upon others, and you'll think that they are not up to the mark. Okay, you are superior to them. So this is a very harmful attitude. This attitude will take you to great troubles. Fine, so you should treat both of them in a balanced way. Okay, and do not let any one of them to control your behavior, to control your mind. So this is what the poet is trying to say. Athar, why do you switch off your video all the time? Athar Kesarwani, don't do that. So have you understood these 4 lines, children? Then he is saying, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools. So knaves, who are knaves? The dishonest people. So he's saying that there will be times in his son's life that he will be hearing the same words which have been spoken by him in the past, but then the same words would be misrepresented. Whatever he must have spoken, the same thing has been spoken, the same thing has spread among the masses in a different way. All right, just to make a trap, just to befool others. But then he does not have to lose his calm at that. He does not have to become very dejected and or feel sad about it. Rather, he'll have to bear with it. All right, he does not have to give much thought to it. Fine, so he should be able to have that tolerance kind of thing. Fine, on dealing with such issues, in dealing with such issues. Okay, so here you can see you can say that the poet is talking about self-control, having self-control. So in this stanza, in the first 4 lines, which virtue has been described? Self-control. Okay, and then here in the last 2 lines, tolerance. Okay, now, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. So now he's saying that if you have the courage to watch the things, to see the things you've worked for throughout your lives, to see the things struggled for throughout your life, losing, okay, going away, fading away, fine, but still you have the courage to stop, okay, to bend, and then to again start from the scratch with all the leftover resources, with all what you have, what you are left with. Worn out tools means whatever you are left with. Okay, when you have lost everything you had, when you've lost all your achievements, if you have lost everything you've earned throughout your life, still you have the courage to stop and to start from the scratch, to start right from the beginning with whatever you are left with whatever you are left. All right, so this here is the poet again is talking about courage. Okay, is this stanza clear to everyone? I hope you people are writing all these things, writing the explanation. Okay, yes, Sudhanshu, read the next stanza.
You and me, one thing on your winning and leave it on one side of it and go and lose and start again at your winning and never be a word about your loss. If you can move your head and nerve and think, you know your time long after they are gone. And to hold on when there is nothing in it you expect the will with them. Hold on.
Yes, mute yourself. So now in this stanza, the first line says, if you can make one heap of all your winnings, that means if you can collect all your winnings, all your achievements, everything which you have achieved so far, and then risk it in one turn of pitch and toss. And then what do? You risk it. All right. And in one turn of pitch and toss is a kind of game. And that is a game of chance. That is a game of luck where you don't know whether you'll win or not. Fine. So if you have the ability to take risks in life, and why does the poet want his son to take risks? In order to achieve bigger goals. Okay, suppose you have achieved small things in your life, but now is the time for you to head towards the bigger goal in your life. And for that, you are required to risk everything which you have achieved so far. So you should have the courage to do that. You should develop the ability to risk, to take up challenges. Okay, please mention over here. The poet is talking about the ability to take up challenges in life, to take risks in life, because you cannot play safe all the time. All right, there will be when you will have to take risks and you won't be knowing what the consequence will be, what the result, what the outcome will be. And then in the very next line, he's saying, and lose. See, the poet is preparing his son for the worst. He's preparing his son for all the adverse thing which he could face in his life. He is not talking about the easygoing life. Okay, it is always better to be prepared for the worst, because if you will be prepared for the worst, you will never be taken aback by by how life is going, by how life will treat you in future. So that is why, see, he has said that if you can make a heap, if you can collect, if you can pile up all your winnings, all your achievements, and then you risk it at the game of chance, in the game of luck, and then you lose. And then he is giving again yet another condition, and that you are losing. You lose all your achievements. You lose all your winnings of whatever you have. And then you start again at your beginnings. Okay, so you are back at square one, and then you are again starting your life. So that takes a lot of courage, that takes a lot of guts to do. First, to your achievements, to risk all what you have, and second, if you lose by in any case, then to start again. Okay, so he is saying that thing, that you should again have the courage to do that, and never breathe a word about your loss, and never utter a word of complaint about whatever you have lost. Okay, so he is asking his son, he wants his son not to crib over anything, to face everything with a strong heart. All right, and never cry over what he has lost. He should never waste his time at cursing what he did in his past. Rather, he should always be moving ahead, marching ahead, come what may, whether he wins or he loses. If he loses, he should not complain. Fine, he should take the responsibility of his actions, and he should march ahead. He should keep on moving ahead. All right. Next, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone. So here he is talking about heart, nerve, and sinew represent your mind, soul, and body. Okay, your mental state and your physical body, mind and nerve. So he is talking about that. And if you have control over your mind and soul and body, and if you can force it, if you can force these three things to work in your favor, to serve your turn means to work in your favor. If you can make them work in your favor, okay, long after they are gone means long after you are exhausted, both mentally and physically. Long after you are exhausted, long after you are tired enough. That means you are tired enough not to work anymore. Okay, you don't have any kind of energy to work or to build your fortune yet again. But then your willpower should be strong enough to guide your soul, to guide your mind, to guide your body, and you should be the instructor of your own body. You should instruct your mind, body, and soul that no, you have to work. You have to keep working. Okay. So even if you are exhausted completely, you are worn out completely, you are not willing to work anymore. Okay. You have become dejected, you become hopeless with all the efforts which you have put in, and your efforts are not turning into action, and your efforts are not bearing any kind of fruit. Is and that time that is the lowest point of your spirit. But at that time you are not to lose hope. You have to again gather the courage. You have to again uh, fill yourself with energy, and then make your mind, body, and soul to work in your favor. And so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. So you hold on when there is nothing in you again. That means when there is no energy left in you. Okay, when there is no energy left in you. But then what is left? Nothing is left inside you. No energy, no strength. But what is left behind? Only the will, which says to them, hold on. So here will is again personified. So personification is used in the last line. What is this will? This will is the willpower, the strong willpower, or the inner voice, okay, which keeps motivating us. It keeps motivating us and keeps our body from getting tired and depressed and exhausted. It directs our body to keep moving, right, and to stay strong when we are completely exhausted. So that is our inner conscious, which says to us that you still have the energy, you still have the time to work for anything, to work for whatever, to work for your goals. So it is the inner voice which keeps you moving. Okay, this is the willpower which the poet is talking about. Fine. And here hold on means perseverance. So in this stanza, last line, which virtue has been talked about? Perseverance. Okay, and you should just persevere even if you feel hopeless, and you should not give up on moving with determination. So you should keep on working towards your goal. You should keep on moving ahead, marching ahead towards your goal, even if you have lost all the energy, even if you have lost all the strength in you. Still, your willpower should be strong enough to make you start again, to make you to keep you going. All right. So despite of difficulties, failures, or oppositions, you should persevere, because perseverance is the key to success. Perseverance means to keep moving ahead despite all the negative things, despite all the obstructions, all the hindrances which life throws at you. Maybe it might be in the form of people, or it might be in the form of situation or circumstances, but nothing should stop you from getting your goals, from achieving your goals. Okay, clear? Fine. So we'll move on to the last stanza. Yes, I read.
If you can talk with the crowd and keep your virtue,
or work with the kings, nor lose the common touch. If neither force or not loving friend can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60-second worth of distance run, your is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Okay, you can mute yourself. And so the last stanza, first line. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue. So here crowds, by crowds he means the common masses, okay, the common people. So if one should interact, he's saying that you should interact. He's saying to his son that he should interact with the common people also. And but in interacting with the common people, he should not lose his virtues. He should not forget about his values. Okay, he should keep his values and virtues intact, even if he's talking, even if he's interacting with the crowd, even if he's talking with the masses. So here, basically, the poet is saying that he should keep his virtues. He should keep his virtues intact, even around people who are inconsiderate of values in life, for whom the virtues hold no importance. Okay, so in a crowd, various kind of people will be there. It's not that all virtuous people will be there. There might be very many people who are not good. Okay, who do not consider virtues, who do not consider the importance of virtues in life. So he will be meeting with different kinds of people in a crowd. So he should keep his values intact. Even if you are meeting a person who is dishonest, so you should not lose your integrity. Okay, an example I'm giving you. Even if you meet a person who keeps on telling lies all the time, you should not lose touch. You should not leave the hands of truth. Right? So that is what he is saying, that he will meet people from different walks of life, but he should keep his virtues intact. Whatever he has learned, whatever he has inculcated, whatever values he has inculcated, he should not lose those values, even if he meets different various kinds of variety of people in his life, especially those who are inconsiderate of the values, who are inconsiderate of the virtue. Inconsiderate means who do not consider them, the virtues and values, important. There is not they hold no importance near them. Fine. And then in the next line, he says, a walk with the kings. Okay, that means a walk with noble people, a walk with great people who have achieved success, who are successful in their lives. Okay, so when you are surrounded with such people, with noble people, with great people, with successful people, then you should not lose common touch. You should not lose the common ground. You should not forget where you come from. Okay, you should not forget. You should not forget your humility. So he is saying that he should not be proud. He should not become proud of being in the company of great people. Fine. So he is saying that one should remain in touch with both the kinds of people, with the common man also and with great people also. Because if one remains in touch with the common man, then one remains in touch with the reality, and one remains in touch with the needs of the people in the common on the common ground. And if one remains in touch with the noble people, with great people, then he will remain then he will get the opportunities to achieve higher goals. He will set higher goals in life. He or she will set higher goals in life. All right, so if you are with common people, you will always remain in touch with the reality, ground reality. Okay, for instance, if you are touch with the people, with common man, you will know what their problems are, what their basic needs are. Okay, what their basic necessities are. So if you are in the position of helping them out, you'll be able to help them out. And if you're also in touch with the great people, then you will also have you'll also set your perspective will increase, widen, and you will set higher goals in life. Okay, you'll get to know that, okay, this also I can do, this field also I can explore. Okay, so you should, the poet is saying that one should remain in touch with both kinds of people. It should not be like you are only talking and sitting with among the crowd, and you are only talking and sitting with the noble people. That should not be the case. Fine, your personality should be flexible. Okay, you should be able to adjust and interact with all kinds of people. Never restrict yourself to just being able to interact with one kind of people in life. Understood? Next, he's saying if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you. All right, so here the poet is saying that one should remain unaffected by the acts or the deeds of his enemies or friends. Foes means enemies. So nobody should be able to hurt you. You should not be weak enough to get hurt by other people. Other people should not, gain control over your emotions. So he's saying that one should have that strength, that physical, mental, internal strength to fight with all these things. You should be just unaffected. Okay, all these things should not affect you, because if you're affected by the words or the acts of others or the deeds of others, then all these things are going to act as obstructions or hindrances in your way. Okay, so you will stop, you will think over it, you'll feel sad about it, and you will end up wasting your time. That is why you should remain unaffected. If somebody has done something which you did not expect, let it go. Don't just stick to it and keep on thinking over it time and again. All right. Then he's saying, if all men count with you, but none too much. That means if you regard everyone, pay equal regard to everyone, if you respect everyone equally, but then you should not respect anyone to the extent that you start idolizing that person, that you start following that person blindly. Yes, you should give respect, you should pay regard to everybody, but you should never follow anybody blindly. Okay, you should have your own opinion about everything and everyone in life. You should form your opinion. You should use your reason and rationality to think, to see whether what you have to follow. Nobody is perfect. So you should gain, or you should grasp or imbibe only the good things from everybody. Okay, if you keep on following just one person, then you know what will happen. You will not have variety of virtues in you, because that nobody is perfect person. Everybody, there's always a scope of improvement, as I tell you every day, as I tell you always. So in every person there's a scope of improvement, even if that person is appears to be best, to be the best, to be perfect, but that person, nobody is perfect. That is the thing. And nobody should think himself or herself to be perfect. Okay. So that is what is meant by this line. And then these two lines are of great importance. If you can fill the unforgiving minute. Here, the poet is talking about the importance of time, how important the time is. And here the time has been personified, unforgiving minute. If you can fill each minute of your life with 60 seconds worth of distance run, that means if you utilize your time completely, each and every minute of your life completely, to the fullest and judiciously, in a productive way, that such that you use each second. Okay, a minute is comprised of 60 seconds, so you use each second, all the 60 seconds productively, with productive work. By productive work, the poet means that you do something which is meaningful. Okay, you do not while away your time, because he has then said the time is unforgiving. The time is unforgiving. Why? Because see, if you lose a second, that particular moment is never going to return in your life. So it is unforgiving in that manner. It does not those who waste time. So time is a good teacher. It is the best teacher, in fact, because if you have to work with the pace of time, you have to work with the pace of time. It makes only thing which is independent is time. The whole world is dependent on time. Is time dependent on anything? No. Everybody and everything in this world is dependent on time. So the only thing which is independent in this entire world is time. So time is that time has that power. Time is very powerful. So if you don't walk with the pace of time, if you lose the pace of time, you are losing the time. You are never going to get that moment back. So it is unforgiving. It never waits for anyone. All right, it keeps moving ahead. It keeps on marching ahead. Then it is up to us whether we utilize it or we waste it. If we will utilize it, it will give us, all sorts of achievements. But if we waste it, we are at loss. Fine. So that is why time is unforgiving, because it does not wait for anyone, and it does not forgive those who waste it, because that person who has wasted the time, he or she is not going to get that particular time back. That time is gone and gone forever. So time is independent and time is very powerful. Then comes the final line, which is telling us the consequence if one follows all such conditions which have been enlisted, which have been enumerated by the poet. That if his son fulfills all these conditions, then what will happen? Yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. So he's saying that if you follow all these conditions in your life, if you behave in all such manners in your life at different circumstances in your life, then what will happen? You'll conquer this world. Earth means the world. Okay, you'll conquer the world and you'll conquer everything that is in it. You'll have control over everything. And besides, moreover, you will be a great human being. Man, by man here he means human being. Okay, so this is the achievement which his son would be getting at the end, or if he fulfills all the conditions he has mentioned so far, that he'll be able to conquer the earth and he'll be able to rule over everything that is present inside the earth. He can reach at the top of the earth of the world and rule over every fine. And the more important thing is that he will be a complete and perfect human being who possess all the virtues of life, and who will have developed the art of living. Okay, and at the last he says, my son. So that means here we come to know that the poet is talking to his son. So this is all about this poem. I hope you people have understood. Yes. Thank you.